Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are watching Off the Track, and it is time to drop the hammer.
So we basically kind of committed to building a frame a week, and Pete was driving it, and Keith Bloom Jr. was the house car driver here at the time, and Pete and I were going to go recreate the world. We were going to build the next great thing.
Yeah,
and so we tried a few different things and tried a couple cars, and then what became the Area 51 car was a car that we built, and I was going home. So we built the car, and I wasn't going to be able to be here that weekend for that race. And I remember going home, and Pete was kind of giving me updates, throughout the night. He's like, "Man, this thing's badass." And I'm like looking at the lap times, and I'm like, it's okay. We qualified a little better, but I don't know. I'm looking for trophy dash, heat race wins,
success all night.
And I didn't think that the results reflected it, but he felt strongly about the car. So the next week I was here for the next race, and I come back and I watched, and I was not impressed by the car. I was like, I don't really see, I don't see what you're seeing in it. So I'm going to go build something else. So we started thinking about the next car. Mm-hmm. Well, he had talked me into selling a couple of them to some guys in Texas. Yeah. So Ross Taylor's group and Rusty Taylor and they had a couple of these chassis. And like I said, they didn't have a name yet. We didn't know
it's prototype.
Yeah, it's one-off stuff.
Yeah.
So Pete and myself and RJ and who else? A bunch of us went to Texas for the Lone Star Nationals, and we were running those guys' cars. And Pete went down there and whipped up on everybody with that thing. And I'm like, it was a dead issue. Like, it was completely scrap in my eyes.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And Pete went out there and just was fast all weekend long. Yeah. And this is when Colby was actually driving the RFC of Wheelers, because he would run that car sometimes when Mikey couldn't run it. Yeah. And Foster was there with his car with those two cars. And Pete was really the only one that moved through the race. And I was really impressed with that car. And I'm like, man, I probably ought to rethink this car.
Yeah. Yeah.
And along with, as that's happening, Logan was the targeted guy that I wanted to be our house car driver even before I bought the place. So as I was out here just watching races and spectating, I was kind of searching around for, we were going to try to rebrand this whole place. Yeah. And go a different direction and try to, I had an image that I wanted to try to portray and capture. Yeah. And it wasn't that Keither couldn't do that. I just wanted to change it.
Yeah.
Something new.
To your vision new.
And Keither was doing a good job, and he won the championship for us the first year that I was here. But, we were transitioning in that phase, and he was going to go sprint car racing. So, it was all kind of going to work out. Well, I didn't realize at the time that the house car was not something desired to drive. It was not that. Yeah. It was not that great. Yeah. Of a thing to drive.
It didn't in the pits. It really wasn't the nicest piece.
No.
Kind of thrown together and
right. And I didn't. At one point in time they were. In probably the early 2000s, but it kind of tapered way off. So I had kind of met Logan and really liked Logan. And this is kind of when Twitter first come along, and I really enjoyed how he handled things. Yeah. And that's really what excited me about him. I knew he was a good race car driver. I didn't think he would be great at Red Bluff, but I thought, he can win at Cycleland. And if you get in a wreck with a guy, you're not going to be mad at him because it's obviously circumstantial. It's not like, you took me out. And I said, I'm going to, rebrand this, we're going to brand this kid, and we're going to go racing. And Amber wasn't really too hot on this idea. And like I said, I don't, my vision of what I was planning on doing and the reality of what was existing at the time, that was like, nah, that's not that good of a deal, So we had some conversations in the beginning, and there was a couple rough patches in the beginning, that because I wasn't where I wanted to be yet. It was evolving.
It's just starting out.
Yeah, the engines and stuff, we hadn't got engines yet. I mean, the engines that were here were horrible. Yeah. I ended up sending the engines that I owned from North Carolina out here because they were better than what we had here. Yeah. And it was just a bunch of used up stuff, So we went to Texas, the Cactus Speedway thing, and that was the first. Logan had run my car at Lakeport with Pete and him, but I wasn't really there. It was the 81 car, and he drove it. Mm-hmm. But this was the first race. The 51 car with Logan was going to run, and Colby was running the 1K that was a car that was a partnership with Kyle and myself.
Yep.
And we got this old rickety trailer from Chuck Wolf. We loaded up all these go-karts, and we went to Texas and raced. And that was like the first race that Logan, drove a house car for us. And then right after that was Cycleland was starting. Yeah. And we went there, and we ran okay. And then we went to Cycleland, and Colby and Logan just annihilated everybody.
Yeah.
And then we couldn't build Area 51 cars fast enough. I still felt like at the time the car was good, but I didn't think it was great.
Yeah.
But at Cycleland, it took off, and Colby and him won the first couple races, and then it was like, here we are, we're on our way, we're building Area 51 cars. But the Area 51 name came about because a friend of mine at Ganassi's that worked in the carbon shop, Johnny Floyd, he and I used to always do like these top secret projects, right?
Yeah.
Well, we were working on this rear end fan thing. Well, we found these rear end fans online that were some massive electric motor. And whenever we would do something, Johnny's joke was always, get this to the carbon shop, which was the carbon shop.
Yeah.
He goes, let's get this in Area 51 quick before anybody else finds out. So that was like, that was just like a figure of speech that we always said. Well, the shop over there that Pete was in got kind of labeled Area 51 because that's where I worked out of. I didn't even work in my own shop.
Because you're testing stuff.
Yeah, because we were testing stuff, and I didn't want to piss off the people that work for me. If I'm using their tools or, I'm still trying to feel my way around this. So I was over there with Pete, and we were building these cars at night and stuff, and in the evenings, and, collaborating during the day and all that. So that kind of got labeled Area 51. Well, I always liked the number 51 anyway, and my number was 81. So that's why I wanted my house car to be,
it's just like a little spin-off of it.
And then Colby and Logan are the ones that actually kind of named that car the Area 51 and printed the little stickers for it and designed the logo and stuck them on the cage before we went to Texas. And that's how it happened. But it had nothing to do with the fact the car was a 51.
Yeah.
It had nothing, it all just happened.
Yeah.
And, then we were on our way. We went racing, and we won the championship with Logan that summer. And then, went back into Red Bluff that next year. And I don't remember if that's the year that Logan got sick and he didn't end up running the whole season or
I think there was maybe 1 year in between because he won 2 championships at Red Bluff. You guys had your 1 year where you pretty much won every single big race minus maybe I think one Speed 51, West Coast Nationals.
Yeah, leading the race at Wild West and lost a Master Link on the last restart, and then we got thrown out at Topher Classic for being too light.
So, but other than that, you guys were winning every single big race, and that that only carried the Area 51 more to where being the number one chassis that everyone was really coming to QRC for.